shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here, Fred shouts.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, Fred!
Welcome to episode 473 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, November 14th, 2024, in the evening. Coming to you from Nomergon, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From Northrend, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Crash, Beef Squatch, David P., Waloo, Jeremy T., Bottlecaps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, Grizzly Bear, May, and SSJ5 Goku. And by our patrons of the week, Swarm Tides and Doge Decay. You can go to patreon.com/CoinConcede to get perks like thank you at the top of the show, early access to new episodes, one-on-one coaching sessions, and help support the show in the process. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. So, Life and Ladder. We have a lot of thoughts on what this meta might need in terms of balance, but there's going to be a balance window pretty soon. Maybe even by the time you're listening to this, although... Yeah,
they usually come out on Thursdays, so unlikely, but possible. I mean, it's also getting close enough to the holidays that things might get a little bit off schedule. So who knows?
But at any rate, we're going to save, at least attempt to save, much of that discussion until we actually have those changes. But, yeah, all that to say, new decks are not doing so hot, or new cards, really. We've been trying. We actually... all for a time we're playing the same slower priest deck, which is a first.
I'm sorry.
But there's good reason. This was a priest deck that actually has like a combo kill, right? It tries to kill the opponent. You do so with Zarimi, and you can be aggressive against certain matchups.
I got some kills on turn 7 with that deck.
Yeah. So It basically functions on the possibility of you Ceaseless Expanse and then use Zarimi, and that's guaranteed 19 damage. So if you, say, have Alex, you can set them to 15. If you have a cheese that's been powering up all game, right, that's a ton of damage. Even if you have a not very powered up cheese, you can Volge in on the attack turn to attack with Ceaseless Expanse and then Volge in whatever your lowest power thing is into another 15. So it has a lot of damage potential on the kill turn. I found the trickiest bit was just like surviving to Ceaseless being 0.
Yeah.
Unless you were able to be the aggressor, right? And just like activate Zarimi and get him.
Yeah.
I settled on a list that had Sasquatch, and so a very common play pattern for me was to go Clay Matriarch and the Mini on 7, and then on 8, Sasquatch and play another Mini. And those were usually the matchups where I got to be the aggressor.
Yeah. Imagine.
This is one thing where if you haven't done like Sasquatch on a miniaturize, even though it feels like a battle cry, it's not a battle cry, so it does repeat. You do get the mini into your hand when you repeat the card.
I mean, even just getting it on the board is also not nothing, right? Like getting the one cost mini onto the board is still like another 4/4 ultimately.
Yeah, I like really slimmed down the dragons to just the pair of gift wrapped whelps, the pair of Clay Matriarchs, and Gorgonzormu, and that was it. And that was working pretty well for me. I did a very me thing, which was to put in the healing location kind of for the healing, but mostly just because it isn't a spell or a minion, and the deck, like all its draw, is targeted. So the fewer you can have of those different things, the more consistent you can be in terms of like hitting with what you want with those discover draws. Yeah.
Because I guess we should say that like it's running the best card draw that Priest has to offer, which is to say not great. So you're running Bird Watching, you're running Scale Replica, right? And then you're running Benevolent Banker. And we had a discussion like Benevolent Banker can't be it, can it? Until I realized, oh, that's what Priest card draw is right now. So, so we're running Benevolent Banker because it gets us closer to our win con. That's the only reason that we're winning, and it's fine, right? It's not bad. Like this deck runs some cards that I had basically written off as complete garbage for a while now. Like Fly Off the Shelves is a legitimate board clear in this deck, half because you just get dragons in your hand with the Scale Replica, like Scale Replica on 2 into Fly Off the Shelves on 3 is at minimum a 3 damage clear. And with what you're looking at in the meta that early, that's usually enough just to get rid of the early aggression. And it also runs double repackage. And I looked at that, I'm like, that cannot be correct. Until we realized that, oh yeah, there's a lot of death rattles that this just undoes, right? It doesn't matter that they're going to get to play them again. They're probably cheating all that mana all at once. So they're not going to want to pay for that like retail price. And also a lot of those death rattles make armor, and armor is the bane of this deck's existence, because if they get too much armor, then it doesn't matter. I mean, I guess if you have a cheese for long enough, you can get through it, but your odds of getting through on the kill turn are greatly diminished if they have any sort of a volume of armor. So being able to stop all of that from going, or, you know, take a starship that a druid is launched, as a druid or a death knight has put together, and just yeet it back into the deck where it can't hurt you it was relevant more often than I would have thought when I was first looking at the list.
And you were running gyro worms as well, right? Because it's just flexible. It's healing, or it can clear something, or it can be a little extra damage on this Remy turn.
I got rid of them.
You got rid of them?
They felt really slow all the time. And I felt like if I was picking a lifesteal defensive thing, I preferred the Eridar Brutes.
Yeah. Well, it's, first of all, why not both? Second of all,
for the aforementioned targeted draw.
Well, yeah, but I didn't care that much about that. And I thought also like being able to chip away 5 armor from the opponent early before it started building up was actually relevant more often than not. I wasn't using it necessarily for removal or for healing. I was using it to get rid of armor. So
I guess it might depend on what you're facing more. Like if you're facing more Swarm, if you're facing more Pain Priest, which I will get to, then the Eridar Brute is probably like, that's a card that comes down. I'm like, well, this is a problem. Whereas I wouldn't care about a Gyro Worm, but other decks might care a lot more about a Gyro Worm, and the Eridar Brute might sit in your hands. So it depends on what you're facing, I think. I will make sure that this deck is in the show notes, and also the deck lab forum or the deck list library. I'm
just putting I'm finding the link from competitive HL, because this came because I've been spending a lot less time on Twitter, which has meant that I've been spending a lot more time on Blue Sky and Reddit lately. Because Blue Sky is nice, Reddit is still preferable to Twitter at this point. So and also Reddit is where I end up getting the alerts about Magic cards being on sale. I'll shut up now. So I was scrolling through that, and I happened upon that. I'm like, well, this looks like a meme. And then I started reading the post. I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of genius. So, and then I started posting it in our thread, and then we just started riffing on it. So, and this is what I played. I should say also, I have resumed my regular streams. I'm only streaming on Monday nights now, because trying to do Monday and Friday was too much in retrospect, and that was part of my burnout. But I am streaming again on Monday night, and I streamed this for about 3 hours on Monday night. So if you want to see this deck in action, you can go watch my stream. I had probably like a 45% win rate with it, and I ended up tweaking it, and some of the tweaks made it a little better. But yeah, it's a fun deck, at least for me, because I haven't gotten to play a slow priest deck in what feels like forever, and this felt like coming home. So I was, even though I wasn't winning every game, I was enjoying myself in a way that I realized that I hadn't been as much lately, because like slow priest decks were in such a bad place that I haven't really been able to get back to that spot, which is not to say that that's the only thing that I enjoy in the game, but it is my favorite, like far and beyond everything else. And I just hadn't had the opportunity to play that kind of deck for quite a while. So it was good to go back to it.
And I liked it because it used Ceaseless Expanse to win. So.
And I'm sure it surprised people, because right now, pretty much all priests are pretty fast. Even the Anchorite priest is pretty fast. And so they're not expecting that out of a priest portrait. They're not mulling for it.
Yeah. They for sure are not expecting it cleared by fly off the shelves. Like, that's not a thing that anybody's expecting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I had some fun watching that stream. I actually didn't play that much of this deck myself, because it's turned into, for all that the new set, I think some of it has landed somewhat, some of it less so. Elemental Mage obviously landed in maybe a slightly different direction than they intended, but it's a strong deck. Reno Death Knight just is tier 2 in a lot of rank brackets with the starships, but a lot of things haven't. But Ethereal Oracle, for example, has made a lot of sort of fast decks. I think the average turn is still your sort of typical 7-8, but there's a lot of like get 'em decks or hang back and then spell damage, especially at the ranks where I'm playing. Spell damage druid has become very popular. I saw one Quasar rogue today. Their username was Free Hat. I was like, well, if he needs freeing from someone or something, then I approve of that. But
he needs freeing from the flu, apparently.
Apparently, yes.
Yeah.
Get your vaccines.
Yes. And feel better, Hat.
Before they take it away. I'm sorry. I'll stop.
So, but then so I was predisposed to like this person, but then they did the full Quasar combo and killed me with exact lethal, exactly as the time ran out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. As you do.
At least they didn't emote. Actually, they might have, but I squelched them, so we don't know whether they emoted. And that's the right way to go with a Quasar rogue, I think.
It's sort of like, on top of everything else, it's like, oh yeah, and one of the new decks is not good, but sometimes you get got.
It's like a scratch-off ticket, right? Like, you hit just enough to make you want to go do it more, and then you don't notice as much the times that you end up just getting nothing out of it, because every so often you hit the jackpot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I ran into Anda Fern, who's a good player, but she also had the nuts. She had location on 3, prep Quasar on 4, and I died on 5.
This is what's happening to priest main. She's a priest main. This is what's happening to priest mains. This is how bad it is. I'm telling you.
Well, luckily I only saw one today. I actually didn't see a ton of Alonia's druid. I saw a pretty good mix of things. A lot of cycle rogue at the higher legends, I think. Some Pipsy Paladin, those are coming up. Those were things that were called out by Vicious Syndicate today.
Cycle Rogue is that deck for people who are like, okay, but I need to take things seriously.
Yeah. It's a responsible adult choice.
It's like, they would play that deck if it were better. They would play Quasar if it were better, but because it's not, they're like, okay, but the Giants is the responsible choice. It took me a minute to realize that Gaslight Gatekeeper is not in that deck anymore, and that really threw me for a spin.
Yeah, I've been calling it Gaslight Rogue, but you're doing the Robocaller. You have that 8-mana tradable dragon so that you can just you can draw it with Robocaller when you top deck it and your everything must goes. Then you trade that for an extra draw. So I've been running into some that are running, I don't know if this is like the meta thing to do, but that are running Incendious just in case they do draw their whole deck and then you won. They just Incendious and they can like Ethereal Oracle that if they want and then continue to draw from their deck. I'm not sure if they're all running Ethereal Oracle, but I did run into that, and I think the Incendious is pretty kind of the new hot thing.
Yeah, Ethereal Oracle is the reason they don't need to run Gaslight Gatekeeper anymore, because that card is bananas. It's at least one of the reasons. Because that's a lot of draw. Like, especially if do they run Shadow Step? They must, right?
Yes, you still run Shadow Step.
Yeah, so they can Oracle, Shadow Step it, or play another spell, draw more. Like, that's a lot of draw that they can get off of that.
Well, there's two decks. So the sort of standard cycle rogue, like the Vicious Syndicate, doesn't actually run Ethereal Oracle. It does have like a backup plan with Incendious or like Grift as Sonya things if you want. You can like Shadow Step your Robocaller and then Sonya your Robocaller.
Oh yeah, that too. That's another draw 3.
So
yeah.
The lists I'm seeing from like the China qualifier, which we'll get to later, it seems like the goal is to have a Robocaller, maybe that is made cheaper by Frequency Oscillator, and I'm not positive, but I think it's sort of like you make it cheap somehow, you play it to not draw 8s, and then you step it and you play it to draw 8s.
Yes, I think that's what I've seen the most of. That's how you can draw everything for the Everything Must Go. You can get those out very quickly. There's a different deck that like I ran into Jay Alexander playing today. That's like a combo deck where let me see if I can find the exact list. It might be on Streamer Decks, but it's like basically just a lot of discounted cards, and then you make a weapon big and you have big spell damage and you draw your whole deck and rogue things. I'll see if I can find that list. I didn't have that one prepared, but I just realized that I ran into that.
Oh, is this the like, because of the new discount your combo cards, right? You get your 2 cost damage dealing spells to be 1 cost, and then you Sonya pop off, right? Get to play all of them twice. Little bit of spell damage goes a long way. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that does play Ethereal Oracle, and he was doing things like play Ethereal Oracle just to draw and then step it.
Yeah.
And then it'll be cheap on your combo turn, as well as you got some extra draw.
Not only will it be cheap, it'll be cost 1.
Yep.
Exactly. Yes. Not only will it be cheap, but you can have 2 of them because of Sonya, which then also draws you more combo stuff that's spell damaged. Yeah. So if you are a rogue person, that might be a thing to look into. That's the kind of thing that I've been running into. I originally had been playing a lot of Elemental Mage, and I've been giving a lot of tips to my husband, who's been playing a lot of Elemental Mage. And then I've been playing a lot of Pain Priest in the past few days. This is like the platonic ideal of an aggro deck. This is like, I've been killing sometimes on 4. It's probably a little excessive, but basically, so the Vicious Syndicate list that came out today runs Aman'Thul. I have not even been running Aman'Thul. We have no card more expensive than 3 in this deck. Maybe ticking Pylons Ziliax would be something to consider, but that could get stuck in your hand. Like the whole idea is you need to be going from the gun, right? You need to be starting off the blocks fast as possible. You can, if you miss like turn 1 or something, like don't panic. You can come back with like funnel cakes and things, but you need to be going quickly. Everything can be played. You must get value out of your clergies. So if we set the list that I've been playing, so we have some of the pain stuff. You have like Acupuncture, Brain Masseuse. I'm only running 1 Nightshade Tea, but you could, a lot of lists run 2. Hot Coals and Ethereal Oracle, which makes all of that do a lot more damage. That's kind of your plan B. If you don't just win with an early swarm of minions, you have like Ethereal Oracle into pain stuff. And occasionally you can force a tie if you're going to lose with the Acupuncture. I've done that before. Not as often as I was doing it during the Tavern Brawl, but some of the time. You have a bunch of other 1-drops, Catch of the Day, Crimson Clergy, of course, Overzealous Healer. This is actually a very good card. You have a lot of healing for clergy. I'm actually running, instead of that Nightshade tea, I'm running a fan club. Because we do hurt ourselves a lot. Occasionally a little healing is good, and you need to get draw off your clergy because your whole deck costs 3 or less. You are playing out your whole hand all the time. So you have to have, I like that I can set that up, and then like when I swing with my trusty fishing rod, if I pull a clergy, I get a draw right away, for example, without having to spend mana. We have Pet Parrot, which can either get you like another catch of the day, or it can do another 4 damage on your acupuncture.
You want to tell people what Pet Parrot does? Because that's a card that many people may not have ever encountered.
Yeah, so Pet Parrot is a hunter card that we're getting because we're also running Vol'jin. We're running Vol'jin for bird watching and Pet Parrot. And Catch of the Day, very importantly. Catch of the Day is the 1-mana 3/3 rush that battle cry, summon a 2/1 for your opponent that you can then like run into and be a 3/1. Or if you just summon it with Trusty Fishing Rod, which is the other hunter card we're running, or you summon it with Pet Parrot, then it's just a 1-mana 3/3 with rush. So Pet Parrot is a 2-mana 1/1 hunter minion that has battle cry. Replay the last 1-cost card that you played. So if that's a minion, it'll summon it. If it's with no battle cries, if it is Funnel Cake, it will cast that on a random minion, which could be an enemy minion, so do keep that in mind. I have repeated Funnel Cakes before if I have like 2-3 clergies down, because I do have 1 synchronized in my version, which isn't necessarily standard. If I have some clergies down, I might replay the Funnel Cake if they don't have minions. If they do have minions, you might just be healing their minions. You'll still get mana, but
in fairness, when Funnel Cakes repeat on me, it often ends up being a bad time. So
yes, it does still get you mana, so there is that. But it might do it on the end and only get you 2, and the Pet Parrot costs you 2, and that's kind of a wash. That's just a 2-mana, that's just a 1/1. That's just a Snow Flipper Penguin. It's not especially impressive. But we're trying to get a big board early with Orbital Halo. You can go like Overzealous Healer, coin, Overzealous Healer, put Orbital Halo on the first one that's already silenced. Now you have a 5/4 Divine Shield and a 3/3 on 1. I did that like an hour ago. This is why you need the draw. But then you're looking for like every little incremental bit of damage you can do at the beginning. So like when you bird watching, you're looking for things like clergy, but you also should be slightly biased towards like, if I already have something on the board, it buffs all copies of that minion. So say you already have Catch of the Day on board and you can bird watching and you see the next one. If you don't need something else, you might want to pick the Catch of the Day because that will buff the one already on board as well as the one in your hand. And that can be like the difference between lethal and not lethal. I had a game where against a Mystery Egg Hunter, I knew they were setting up for their Hound on 5. They were like very clearly telegraphing that they were setting up for their discounted Hound on 5. And that was going to be buffed. So I had a board and I was like 5 damage off lethal. But I was able to bird watching into something that was on the board for 2 damage, draw into like an Orbital Halo for 2 more damage, and do like a Power Chord Synchronize for the last damage. Because that also buffs your minion by +1 attack. You can also occasionally get a few points by using Chill and Vol'jin on something that hasn't attacked yet to give it more attack, or that can neutralize an enemy taunt to some extent. It doesn't get rid of its death rattle, but it makes it smaller. It's a really fun, it's, I think, a good example of what Hat would call like compressed decision making of aggro decks, where it's not just play the green card, because all of your cards are green. And if you've been playing it correctly, you didn't just get like 1 draw off your clergy. You got as many draws as possible off your clergy. You do want to not like only tempo it on 1 if you think it won't die, for example. Or maybe if you really have nothing else to do, but like if they played a Miracle Salesman on 1 and they're at DK, like don't just tempo your clergy. That's just not a good idea. You're just going to be sad. Unless maybe you have an Orbital Halo to go with it. But all of your cards should be green pretty much all the time. So it's which card do I play to really maximize my early game? And then I didn't run Amanthul because if we're getting to 7 and I'm not ahead, I'm not winning. So I have one past 7. not all that infrequently, but it was because I already had a lot of board, and then my plan B of Ethereal Oracle was more likely to get me those last few damage. And it's not unbeatable. Like if you have like Rising Waves or Rising Tides, whatever that one is, the 3-mana mage spell that Druid is always running, that can totally wreck me, especially if I only have 3 health or above minions, which is usually, so it goes off twice and then it just clears my whole board. There are definitely ways for it to lose, but it's looking potentially tier 1 unless it gets hit. Then we'll have to see, or if the whole meta changes around, we'll have to see.
Yes.
But if you miss like really pure aggro compressed decision making, I do recommend this deck. And you can have a good time with it. The Nightshade Tea is helpful to get rid of, just keep board control. A lot of like, because you want to go face, but that allows you to actually pick off their minions and kind of trade and go face in a sense, as well as activating your hot coals. But you don't necessarily need to like save it, especially because you have 3 activations for it.
Yes. So we both spent the weekend playing Priest, except your deck doesn't want to go till turn 7, and my deck doesn't want to start until turn 7. We are not the same.
Yeah, I found something even faster than Zaremi. I was actually not doing super well with Zaremi, although I may have been playing the wrong build. I did put Orbital Halo in it, but I don't know that I was playing it quite correctly.
Yeah.
And then I played Pain Priest, and I was just killing people. And the games are fast. And on this deck, if you get totally run out of stuff, like, just concede. Like, it's okay. Just go on to the next game. Don't wait for them to kill you if you're not going to win. Like, if you have a deck tracker, you can look at your deck tracker and be like, is there any top deck in the next turn or 2 that wins me this game? And if there isn't, it's okay. You don't want to auto concede versus anything, but there's no matchup that felt like, oh, this is totally unwinnable to me. But yeah, if they just clear all your stuff, that's what happens. I had an Elemental Mage. I got a great start, and they happened to have exactly like on 4 Surger, which was not a very big Surger, but it was big enough to enable them to do both Solar Flares, which was exactly what they needed to have in hand to win. And it's like, sometimes they have that. So,
yeah. Well, this has been Life and Ladder Explanations.
Yes. So we decided not to do, I kind of wanted to do like, let's do different priest dexplanations this week. And then we were like, it might be totally different really soon. So instead, we're giving you a dexplanations in Life and Ladder. Life also, I went up to see my mother-in-law, met some family on that side who I didn't know, had a couple of really cool teenagers, kind of art theater kids, which I was not a theater kid, but I always vibed with the theater kids. And the real way into the teenager's heart is to ask them about their original fiction. They're thrilled.
Oh, no. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. We got actually quite a bit of news, mostly the Warcraft Direct, which had both like a surprising amount and kind of surprisingly little for Hearthstone. We'll get into it.
Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about that.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right. So yeah, we had the Warcraft 30th anniversary Direct this week. And if you have not watched it, I would recommend they did a really good job of front loading all the non-World of Warcraft stuff so that if you are not deep into World of Warcraft, you got everything that you wanted to get out of the video, and then you could go about your business, which I appreciated as somebody who is not deep into World of Warcraft. So we did have that. We had a number of announcements. First of all, just unrelated to Hearthstone, Warcraft and Warcraft 2 Remastered are in BattleNet. If that is a thing that you are interested in, you can go get them. And if you already bought Warcraft 3 Reforged, then there's a battle chest that is discounted. So if there's a battle chest that'll give you all 3 games. If you already own Warcraft 3 Reforged, you can buy just 1 and 2 and it'll prorate it for you. So if that's of interest to you, they're good games. They're old, but they're good games. So we got a bunch of really significant announcements, and then not a whole lot of detail to follow them up. We got announcements for things that are happening this time next year, even, which is unusual for the Hearthstone team to share things that far in advance. So, first of all, we got an announcement about the next mini set, which we would not be expecting to hear about for at least a month and a half. And it sounds like the next mini set is not only being announced early, but it's also coming early, where it's normally we would be expecting that probably February of next year. And it sounds like it's coming with the 0.2 patch, which is going to be right after New Year's, I would expect. And it's a big one because it's Heroes of Starcraft. So they are taking the space theme and taking it to 11. And we are getting a StarCraft crossover in the mini set. The mini set is bigger than normal. It's 49 cards. And they're taking the 3 factions from StarCraft and spreading them across the classes very similarly. If you've been playing a long time and you remember the tri-class cards from Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, this is the same type of thing where the Zerg, Protoss, and Terran are going to be distributed across those classes. They're not tri-class cards anymore because we have more classes than we did then. But the Zerg are going to be given to Death Knight, Demon Hunter, Hunter, and Warlock, and those are going to be aggressive, go wide strategies. I mean, it wouldn't be Zerg without a Zerg rush. And each one of these factions will also have a hero card that will be available to all those classes. So the Zerg is going to get, of course, Sarah Kerrigan. No word on what any of these heroes do directly, but you will get to play as Sarah Kerrigan, which is very cool. The Protoss will be given to Druid, Mage, Priest, and Rogue. I am actually very happy about that because Protoss was my jam when I played StarCraft, which surprises no one, I'm sure. So they will get a High Templar Artanis as their hero card, and they will have powerful, high-cost cards that are made cheaper throughout the game, which is very on brand for some of these classes, particularly Rogue. And
it's a little weird to me for Rogue, but...
Well, I mean, we had Burgle, not Burgle Rogue, Jackpot Rogue, right? So,
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Feels like it might be on your level for Priest. Kind of thing that you're more likely to want to.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then the remaining classes are Paladin, Shaman, and Warrior, which are going to get Terrans, which is also seems rather fitting. They will get Jim Raynor as a hero card. And they're going to be leaning more into the Starship mechanic. But they're going to be battle cruisers, which is it sounds like if we can get starships to take off, that's going to be something to behold, because the battle cruiser was always in StarCraft was always kind of the big thing that you wanted to do, especially when you're bad at the game and you just want to summon battle cruisers.
This also helps explain why those classes did not have starships.
Right.
And, people were like, why don't paladins have starships? They're like, seem like thematically they would definitely have a starship. Well, because they were getting starships. They were getting battle cruisers. Sorry. In the mini set.
Doesn't explain Priest, but I'll be bitter. It's fine. Anyway. I mean, they might give Priest a starship. I mean, the Protoss also had spacecraft, right? So it's not unreasonable for there to possibly be a starship that some of those other classes would get. So
yeah, just like, I don't know, general pass. I am very excited about this because I do like StarCraft. I hope that this is a lightly used method, because I don't just want to get all the games, all the IPs in Hearthstone like what Magic is doing. Honestly,
you mean you don't want a SpongeBob SquarePants secret lair in Hearthstone at all? I mean,
super don't. Super don't.
I've played against My Little Pony commanders. It's fine. You'll be okay. It's all right.
It's one of those things where it's like you maybe get excited for your IP, but at least for me, when it's like, oh gosh, wait, what has this game become? We're playing like Iron Man versus Optimus Prime versus like I don't want that for Hearthstone, and I really hope that's not the direction. Now this is a Blizzard IP, right? It's pretty close. It's the other RTS. Fits really well with the space theme. I'm down for that. I do find it hilarious that Hearthstone's "What should we do for the 30th Warcraft anniversary?" is Starcraft.
Yeah, this is a little weird. But I mean, if we want to make a Magic analogy, right? This feels to me more like the Dungeons and Dragons sets in Magic than it does,
which works.
Like Marvel or SpongeBob or My Little Pony, right? It doesn't seem like it's that. I mean, it's thematically out there, but we've had out there concepts in Hearthstone. I mean, Hearthstone is not necessarily tied to high fantasy by any stretch of the imagination. And so I don't think that it's necessarily that off. And I mean, we had Overwatch cards. We've had an Overwatch card in Hearthstone for 1.5 years and nobody's cared.
Wait, which one?
Audio Medic.
Okay, but that is an Easter egg, not an expansion.
Okay,
theme,
no, I know.
right?
I mean, we've also had Diablo in Hearthstone, right? I mean, now if you ask a Battlegrounds player, they will not speak fondly of that experience.
Well, or Duels had Diablo,
Duels,
right? But we have not had
and Mercenaries, yeah.
Apart from like Tavern Brawl or those other modes, right? There has never been a standard playable Diablo card, right? I feel like that's the difference.
I think what I wouldn't want it to see is become like Super Smash Brothers, where like the whole point of Super Smash Brothers was let's just see whether Mario would beat Link, and then we add every IP known to man to it, and that's like the point. So it's fine. For Hearthstone, if they were to do that, I wouldn't want them to like overlap something else with the Starcraft set, right? Like, or have more than just a smaller set for it and something that feels kind of like it matches. I mean, I agree that Hearthstone isn't super close in its themes. Like we've had a lot of really disparate expansions, and that can be kind of fun. But yeah, I just wouldn't want it to turn into like Pokemon versus SpongeBob versus Buttercup from Powerpuff Girls. Like somehow I don't think that that's where they're going, but something that still has a somewhat the right tone for it. And that kind of, if you don't play those IPs, they feel like they match. Right.
Like even the Lost Vikings would be like a step too far, I would say. Ultimately, even though you could make an argument for fitting them, like that would be kind of like, okay, now we're jumping the shark. But I think that like people have kind of asked, not necessarily loudly, but people have asked for this for a while. It's also on kind of, if you play a lot of card games that are not Hearthstone, this is like 2 weeks removed from Magic making a big announcement at their Magic Con at the end of October that they're going to be doing 3 Universes Beyond, which are these non-Magic IP sets that are going to be standard legal every year. So there's obviously it's like you can look at that and then see this and kind of see, oh God, I hope we don't go down that route. And is this like the Walking Dead secret lair that opens the door? I mean, I don't think it is. I think there's plenty of lore, and they've been happy to make up their own lore in the Warcraft universe anyway. So I don't see that being there, but I think this is kind of a cool thing for as long as they do this really sparingly and I mean, the fact that they also have access to the StarCraft developers and like the historians within Blizzard means that they're probably going to get the lore right on this. Like it has to, the lore and the feel of it have to land.
It's not like there's a StarCraft game right now, so
this is how you get to play with StarCraft. Also, to preview slightly, we kind of know what's coming in the next year, and it doesn't seem to include other IPs.
Yeah.
Yes, true. Very, very Warcraft.
Well, it's kind of it's unusual, but also I do wonder if that was related. Like, hey, maybe we need to tell everybody that this is going to be the exception, not the rule. So that
I think it was more just like, oh, and we're gonna announce all these other very Warcraft heavy stuff because of the anniversary. That's what it feels. Oh, that is funny because I mean this is all next year.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, but they also don't at BlizzCon last year. And by the way, this felt like a BlizzCon keynote, even though, which it probably was intended to be until we didn't get a BlizzCon. But at BlizzCon last year, they laid out the next 3 major expansions for World of Warcraft, right? They're in the War Within right now, but they laid out the next 2 that aren't coming for a couple of years apiece. And so I think that kind of opened them up to be able to do this. And again, other card games will lay out their roadmap for the year. Now, other card games, physical ones, have to convince local game stores to pre-order them from distributors well in advance. So they have to start building hype early, but still there's not anything that they lose by telling us what's coming and getting us excited for those things. So we got the full roadmap for next year. There's going to be, as expected, 3 expansions. The first one is Into the Emerald Dream, which is going to take place in the Emerald Dream and revolves around a battle for the fate of the World Tree. And then there's going to be a Druids of the Flame mini set.
You forgot one thing. Who is that battle against? The old gods.
Yes. So the old gods
Once
are coming
again.
back. Yeah. The old gods are coming back. Well, so Yogg is going to rotate out and then immediately he's going to be like that Simpsons meme of Grandpa Simpson walking into the brothel and then seeing Bart and then turning around and walking right back out, except in reverse. Yogg's going to leave and he's going to come right back. So
Old Gods 3, Electric Booga Tree.
And, if you're not familiar with the Emerald Dream, I mean, if you know Ysera, right, this is her realm. This is the dreaming realm, and the elves used to have more access to it, for their druidic magic. Now they have less because reasons. And there was Nordrassil, the world tree, was grown inside the Emerald Dream. I am not a Blizzard historian. I just looked this up today, and I played 15 years ago. So my knowledge is out of date. But there was a tree there. They lost that. They made Teldrassil. They wanted that to give them immortality. Teldrassil is also gone for more recent stuff. But we don't know exactly when this is set, but we are fighting for the World Tree and the Emerald Dream. So probably lots of elves and dragons. At least Ysera surely will make an appearance.
I don't think they'll do this, but what if they were just you guys thought we don't do enough minion types. We give you Draenei, and then immediately next set we give you elves.
That would be funny.
Yeah.
And of course, Druids of the Flame, also these are elves, but they are evil, I believe. They serve Ragnaros. Yeah.
Yeah, there's.
You can tell that they're evil because they have flaming eyes and stuff. So
yeah, Fandral was a Druid of the Flame.
Yes.
So, and he sounded very angry in his voice lines. So,
so we can tell.
Yeah, I think it's a corrupted situation, right?
Yeah.
They were all whatever druids before, and then they became Druids of the Flame.
It's like Blood Elves versus Night Elves or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they're fighting either. There's some bad blood there too. Who knows? But
yeah, they turned from Elune. They were twisted by the insane power of fire and desire nothing more than to bury everything in ash. Operate mainly in the Firelands.
Yeah, I will point out as we are saying this, and I am sounding very uninformed, is that I am not a Warcraft. I mean, I played Warcraft 3 a million years ago, and I think all of us are kind of the same. We are here for the card game, and then we learn the lore through the card sets, not the other way around. So,
I know some of this stuff, right? The Warcraft 2 and 3 stuff.
Yeah,
I'm pretty good on. particularly 3 because I played the crap out of that game. 2, I like watched my brother and then learned about some of what happens later. I used to watch this one YouTuber, like his lore videos on Warcraft. So I really like a lot of the lore stuff, but I don't know anything recent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now you can go replay Warcraft 2 and re-experience that lore for yourself. Or not.
Maybe.
Yep.
It's
Why
pretty
not?
hard.
Yeah. Yes, I looked up Fandral. Fandral was formerly the Archdruid of Darnassus, which is like major Night Elf city, but then became evil. He got corrupted by the Nightmare Lord. Descended into madness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very World of Warcraft-like story.
That seems to happen to a lot of druids in Hearthstone. So, you know. Anyhow, the second expansion that we're getting is the Shrouded City, which is going to effectively be Return to Ungoro, which I am very excited about because Ungoro, like Journey to Ungoro is one of my favorite expansions of all time. And I like the dinosaurs. Even though I'm not a hunter main, I still enjoy a good dinosaur here and there. And I fondly remember clearing boards with King Mosh way back when. And, and also Elise is there. And I love Elise. So that's going to be fun. And they're going to be digging more into the Tortolan civilization in Ungoro. The Tortolans were actually a race that they created for Journey to Ungoro that then got imported into World of Warcraft. Fun fact. So they're going to be digging more into the Tortolans. Maybe we'll get a Tortolan minion type through Journey through that expansion. That's always possible. But they're hunting for a lost mythical Tortolan city, and then they will find it in the mini set Festival of the Devil Soar, and where they will have a festival to celebrate the mighty dinosaurs of the Crate. So that does sound. I mean, I'm excited. I love Ungoro a lot. So that whole setting is just it's nice that we're starting to get to go back to some of those things, right? Like we're kind of getting to. I know I keep making comparisons to Magic, at least in terms of like how long the games have been around, but like this would be around when you started going back to like some of those planes in Magic, right? Like, that we're starting to do that now. And I think it's fine. It's been long enough. I mean, Journey to Ungoro was what, like 2016?
Stop.
I know. I know, we were all babies then.
We've had parts of expansions call back to themselves. Right.
Yeah.
With like the old gods coming back in lots of different places. And again, earlier with the Emerald Dream one, which actually, fun fact on that one, they actually originally were talking about doing the Emerald Dream set this year. But then there was a big Emerald Dream themed upstate to World of Warcraft Dragonflight, and they didn't want it to be conflicting. Wouldn't be terribly surprised if that was supposed to be 6th set and this current expansion was supposed to be 4th set next year. That's complete speculation on my part, to be clear. Total speculation.
Sure.
But starships feel a little bit like a 4-set meta type of thing.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're sort of more slower vibes. And, you're building up to a big power thing, and then they would be dropping after Reno rotated. But
right.
Yeah. We don't know. That's just a thought that occurred to me.
Yeah. Tell you what, though. I am quite excited for the third and final of next year, because Time Spiral was like peak Magic the Gathering for me. And this is Time Spiral.
Yeah, so the third one is tentatively named the Heroes of Time. This is far enough out that the names may change. But we are going to travel with Chromie through alternate realities to recruit legendary Warcraft heroes like you've never seen them before, leading up to an epic showdown against Murazond at the end of time. So that sounds pretty cool. I mean, we did get like we've had like Chromie in, I believe, in the Caverns of Time, like wild expansion, but never in a main standard set. So that ought to be pretty exciting.
And Chromie is a bronze dragon who likes to be in the guise of a female gnome. So that is, if you're thinking of the art of Chromie, a blonde female gnome, but she is in fact actually a bronze dragon, and similar to Nozdormu, right, involved with time.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine you could have a lot of fun with getting things from different time periods and like Hearthstone's history. I don't know if they'll do that, but there's a lot of possibility with time traveling.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Or just like mirror, like putting like a mustache on, on Anduin or whatever.
Anduin goes into his emo phase like we saw at BlizzCon last year.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, it's interesting that they're giving us all this information ahead of time, so we're not going to have to kind of guess at it. But also, I know that around Perils, there were also some concerns that they were getting away from the Warcraft theme into kind of because we come off of like a string of kind of lighthearted, alternate, like almost fanficky settings. Like we had Badlands into Whizbang's Workshop into Perils in Paradise.
And before that, we had Festival of Legends. I mean, there was Titans in between, which was very World of Warcrafty, but Festival of Legends very much kind of a fun theme. So yeah, I think that these themes are fun, but if you are someone who enjoys the more Warcrafty themes, that is coming. And that does show that they're not doing other IP stuff yet.
Yeah. But also, like, Ungoro to me is like, I mean, yeah, it's Warcraft, but it's really a Hearthstone theme, right? Because that set felt very Hearthstone-y, even though it's still set in the Warcraft universe. And so, like, I sometimes get a little cranky when they go too hardcore into the Warcraft lore, and this doesn't feel like that. Like, yeah, we're gonna get a very Warcrafty set, the first set, but like Ungoro feels like core Hearthstone to me. Like that's like my definition of like peak Hearthstone, really.
Well, and Into the Great Beyond, I feel like is though it hasn't quite landed yet, but it's kind of similar to me in terms of vibes, right? Where it's like, yeah, this is a very much like Warcraft lore heavy setting, but they really made it pretty Hearthstone-y, I think.
Yeah, I mean, in comparison to something like Titans, right? Yeah. Where Titans feels like there's a lot of stuff, or even like Murder Castle Nathria, right? Where like if you don't know, or if you didn't know who Denathrius was going into that, like you weren't going to get the joke. Like this doesn't feel like that as much with at least with the Ungoro setting, and probably with the Chromie one's probably just going to be like chaos, which is fine. Chaos is Hearthstone.
Like alternate versions of iconic Hearthstone cards might be something that they do.
I mean, my hope and assumption is that it's going to be like time variance authority, like pulling variants of the different heroes out of what we know, right? So, getting Grom as a priest card or like crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, like going back to like Whispers of the Old Gods when they did like the corrupted versions of different characters, and we got like that's the set that we gave us like Ragnaros Light Lord, like Live Insect, right? Like that's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the content, but also we got some major news about Arena.
Mm-hmm.
So Arena is getting its first real overhaul in the 10 years that it's been in the client. It's been more or less the same. I mean, they've made some changes as far as like how the cards got offered. They used to offer them around rarity. Now now they have, and then they had like curated pools, and now I don't even know how they're deciding what go into the pools or if it's just random, whatever. But now they're really taking a different tact at how you're going to play Arena. So Arena is getting split into two modes. There's going to be normal Arena and then underground Arena. So both of them are going to have ratings like Battlegrounds does. So you will have a rating based on your performance in either mode that you can compare to other players, and that will feed into leaderboards, which has always been kind of a struggle with Arena leaderboards, because like they had a lot of weird rules when they were trying to come up with who the best Arena players were, but it was like you had to do a minimum of this number of runs, and you had to get like this many average wins, and it was always weird. So now we're actually going to have a rating for both modes. Normal mode will use that rating for matchmaking. So you will be matched against people of similar skill as determined by your rating, and the runs will be shorter. I think they say, I don't know if I'm making up the number 6 or if that's something, or that's, I'm getting that from like the Tavern Brawl, but that sounds like the number that I remember hearing. That they're going to be shorter runs. You're going to be able to get in, get out. They didn't say anything about what the cost was going to be to enter. If that's going to be something that's going to have the same level of rewards and or cost the same amount to buy into, I would expect that with a lower barrier to entry there, that they might make that more like casual arena and maybe reduce the cost to entry or eliminate it. They didn't say. So that's speculation on my part. That's one of the many details about this that we're not going to know. And we may not hear for a while because this is going to be happening sometime in the middle of next year, apparently.
We do know that part of the goal of this was to be an easier entry point for newer players. And if it's matched by MMR, because often what would happen is if you are a newer player, you go into arena, there's a lot of really skilled arena players out there who are really dedicated to the mode, and you just get destroyed. So this will help prevent that from happening. But they also wanted to give something to those dedicated players. So that is the other mode.
Yeah. So Underground Arena is going to be similar to what Arena is now, with the same, presumably the same length of runs, still going to 12.
Hopefully not.
And it actually says longer runs on this. It says...
I don't know if it's going to be longer than it is now or just longer than normal mode.
I think just longer than normal, and I hope still shorter than what it is now. Because 12 is a lot. 12
takes a while. And there will be, the matchmaking will be wide open. So I don't know if that means that they're not even going to, I think they're still going to match you against your record.
So there's a interview on GameSpot with some of the developers, or like more details about everything that was announced in Hearthstone on this. And it says the Underground will include players of all skill levels in contrast to normal Arena, which will still use a win-based matchmaking system. Oh, actually, You're right. Never mind. It doesn't say. Yeah.
So it might, but I would presume that it's still going to be. I think there was something that was said in the video about, because, let me just say the other piece of it, because this is the important piece. Underground Arena will also have a new feature that they're calling redraft on loss. So after you lose a game, you'll be able to redraft, I believe, 5 cards and then swap out 5 cards from your deck. So you'll have the opportunity to actually improve your deck over the course of the run after you lose a game. And I think what they said was that you were going to be matched against other people who were at that, who had the opportunity to do that or not. Right. So that might not mean that you're matching, a 5-win player against a 5-win player, but you might be matching like all the 0-loss players against each other, all the 1-loss players all against each other, and all the 2-loss players against each other.
Yeah, I think that's cool that you get to change it up, because it does feel, it feels bad to have a deck in Arena that you are unhappy with and feel stuck with it. Yeah. And you're playing games that you lose and you can't do anything about it. So
yeah. Well, it's also that like the first pick really locks you in. And I don't know if they're going to keep like the first pick is always a legendary thing anymore with this. Like that's not clear either. But like let's not say the first pick, but like the second and third picks, right? Like you kind of locking yourself into a strategy, and then sometimes that strategy doesn't pan out and you can never get rid of those cards. Like I still remember, this was years ago. I don't hold grudges. There was Maureen and I used to do drafts together, and there was Anything Can Happen was offered to us in our first pick in this draft, and I was like, "There's no way we're taking that." And Maureen's like, "They're for sure going to offer us Murlocs," and okay, and I agreed, and they offered us exactly 1 Murloc for the rest of the 29 picks after that, and oof. But like, then we're stuck with a 10-mana card that does literally nothing for the rest of the run because we took a gamble on it. So this will reward more high risk, high reward draft strategies, which you can't really do in Arena right now. Like you could never do that if you're being serious about your record in Arena, because like that's just, it's too high variance, and you're very likely to just bomb out, even on the first pick. So I think that's really cool, and it's also gets you a little bit closer to like other games draft modes where you get to draft more cards than you're actually building the deck with, which means you can actually build a deck and not just assemble it pick by pick, right? Which is a lot of that's some of the skill that goes into the deck building phase as well.
Yeah, the fact that you actually get to choose what to cut from your deck,
yes,
adds a whole nother level to it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just get into a game, get into a game or so, and then you're like, oh, this is not working the way I thought it was going to, right? And like, if you're like doing a draft in Magic, you can just change your deck in between games. You don't have that opportunity in Hearthstone Arena right now, but now you will, which is really cool. I'm really excited about that.
And it makes sense that they would have to do it on a loss rather. Like if it was every game, then if you happen to get a really good deck to start with, then they just snowball out of control, that'd be more variance. But if it's on a loss, then it's more about fixing decks that aren't working.
Yeah.
Than making decks that are working even better. So.
Yeah. And also you just like, it takes time to do that, right? So you don't want to just extend the time it takes to do a run by having you go through that like if you think about duels, right? Like that was kind of what was cool about duels, but you kind of got to a point, especially deep into a run, where it's like, I don't want anything else in my deck. I'm good, right? Like, don't make me go to the screen even. I mean, they would have the, I'm the no more, I'm good bucket, but not always, right? So it's going to be interesting how they do this, and it's probably going to take them a little while when they do roll this out to get some of the kinks out. Like, this is a big rework, but like this has me excited about Arena in a way that I haven't really been excited about Arena in probably years. So I think that alone is a really good development for the mode.
Yeah, they've been promising that they were doing a big rework of Arena for a while now. So we finally know what it is, and it does seem exciting. And I'll definitely at least give it a try.
Yeah, I started with Arena, and I've always liked the idea of getting to keep sort of changing around your draft, and this makes it more exciting to sort of keep going, even if you have a mediocre draft, because it might be like on the cusp and you get some wins, then you get that loss, you do the redraft, and like changing 5 cards could make a world of difference. So yeah, much more exciting.
Yeah. Well, and if you want more details about any of these, there is linked in the show notes an interview with Leo and Cora about everything announced in the Warcraft Anniversary 30th Direct, and that also has a link to the video of that. One thing that we forgot to mention, in the Starcraft mini set, there will be a Terran armored Murloc named Grunty.
Oh yes, he's delightful. He's my new favorite.
I don't know if we've even seen art for him yet. Have we?
Oh no, we have. I don't know if it's in here. Yeah, it's not in this. They had a picture of him on the stream. I could actually, hopefully this isn't going to play the audio, but is that playing the audio? I'll mute the audio.
No.
But let me see if I can find it out of the video for the people on stream, because it was absolutely delightful. And I think everyone should see it because it was fantastic.
So if you're listening when you're not driving or something, it would be a good idea to find that image.
He's in a full Terran Marine outfit with a gun, and he looks just delighted to be there.
That's how they're hoping that we will be with the mini set. So there was a Game Rant interview, also more with Leo and senior VFX artist Luke Mason about the starship mechanic. If you're interested to see a little bit more about that, they talk a little bit about why they didn't give all the classes of starships. They don't mention, because this came out before it, that some of them were getting them in the mini set. But Leo also said, the question of why not every class, why just 6? In my heart of hearts, I wish it could be every class, but starships and starship pieces are so difficult to design. To put it bluntly, the design space for what constitutes an interesting starship piece is more narrow than you might think. the coolest part of starships is the combinatorics, but you also need to make sure the combination of the two class pieces is the most exciting part while still being relevant for neutral pieces. When there's also the value proposition. You don't want a particular starship piece to be so valuable you just play it by itself. And I would imagine also like you need a starship that like it has the fantasy of building up a big starship, but also it has some immediate impact, or it's fun while you're building it. I could see why that would be difficult to design. They also talked about how for these starships, at least, they really tried to focus, the ones that we have now, on making them feel like Warcraft, not Starcraft, and represent each class fantasy authentically. And so they had started with a more digitized generic look, but realized it wasn't feeling like Hearthstone. They wanted it to be sci-fi, but Hearthstone. So the VFX artist singled out the Rogue class's starship as his favorite. The kind of cobbled together starship of borrowed elements from everyone else, which right now Starship Rogue is not a very successful archetype, but it is, I think, cool design if that ever becomes more playable. So if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about starships, that link is also in the show notes.
So that is not all the news that we had. There's a reason where this is Oops All News this week, because we not necessarily like that much, but we still got some other things going on. So one of them is that the Warcraft anniversary event in game is now live. So we finally got to learn what For the Alliance and For the Horde do. So this is from Ben Hartstone's tweet, because he speed runs all of the content and then finds out before anybody else, because I don't know if he has a time turner or what he does, but he usually is like done with all the content like before I've even gotten to boot up the client. So part of what you get out of the Warcraft event are these new cards that are being added to standard called For the Alliance and For the Horde.
They're actually, you choose them out of a 4-mana card called Champions of Azeroth. It says choose Alliance or Horde.
Right. They both say get 2 random legendary faction champions and reduce their cost by 2. So, well, which ones? What's Alliance? What's Horde? Well, boy, howdy do we find out. So, For the Alliance will give you Bran Bronzebeard, Archmage Antonidas, Prophet Velen, Tyrion Fordring, and or Varian Rin. Original Varian.
Yeah, these are all the original versions of these cards. So Bran Bronzebeard, your battle cries trigger twice.
Yeah.
Not
for 1 mana.
like new Bran.
For 1 mana. These are all discounted by 2.
Antonidas, whenever you cast a spell, add Fireball spell to your hand. Velen, double the damage and healing of your spells and hero power. And some classes, double the damage of your spells could be pretty insane. But you don't know that. The thing is, you can't know that you're going to get any one of these. Like, you only have a 40% chance of getting any one of these.
Well, it's slightly high. It's probably closer to 50% because it's choose 1 out of the 5 and then choose a second one out of the remaining.
No, it's 2 random legendaries.
You can get 2 of the same?
No, you get 2 different ones, but it's not discover. You don't get to choose.
No. But what I'm saying is that like you're choosing 1 of 5 and then 1 of 4. It's not, so it's slightly better than, I think it's slightly better than 40%, but it's get the one that you want. But yeah, it's you don't get to choose, but also, yeah, getting a 5 mana Velen and Mage. Yeah, that's terrible. I mean, or a 5 mana Antonidas. Either one is kind of terrifying. Getting a 1 mana Bran Bronzebeard and Shaman. Or Rogue, God forbid.
I could see Shaman being happy with Bronzebeard, Antonidas, or Velen. I mean, those tend to be pretty tight lists for the Shaman, but you'd be pretty happy with like 3 out of 5, and you get 2 chances to get 3 out of 5.
I mean, ironically, like Tyrion's probably the low roll out of these because there are some classes that don't want to have their weapon blown up.
Mm-hmm.
And even like a 5/3 Ashbringer is kind of mid in 2024 Hearthstone, but I mean, I guess Varian might be a low roll too if you have a really Battlecry focused deck. You might not want to just be summoning minions. anyhow, that's Alliance, and then Horde is a little bit. I think it's a little bit less nutty, but still has some bangers. So Shadow Hunter Vol'jin, which is battle cry, choose a minion, swap it with a random one in its owner's hand. You have Cairn, original Cairn. Sylvanas. This is the one that's in core. Death Rattle, take control of a random enemy minion. Lorthamar Theron, which doubles the stats of all minions in your deck. Again, discounted by 2, so 5 mana. And Grom. So 6 mana Grom, again, in some classes, is a lot of damage. Just out of nowhere.
Now you do have to run the Champions for Azeroth. You do get to pick which one you want in the middle of the game. You know, you have to pay 4 mana for you're not quite sure what. So this is not going in a fast deck. I don't know that it'll be competitive, but it is fun. And the Alliance ones do seem like they have, in particular, seem like they have some promise, although the Horde ones potentially as well.
Yeah. I mean, the Horde ones you're basically, I mean, unless you really need a Vol'jin to get something off the board or get something out of, like, if you're generally you were playing Vol'jin to try to dirty rat somebody. So if you need an emergency dirty rat, maybe that's what you're doing, but that's less exciting than, oh yeah, I just get to double all my damage. Spells, not all my damage, but all my spell damage, or, you know, even healing in some classes, like, you know, being able to drop a Velen, and if you get it to stick, and playing a Ziliax, right? Like, or if you're Druid, you don't need to get it to stick, you just do it. Right? This is a Druid card, right? I mean, that's probably what this is, because Druid can afford to spend the mana on this.
Maybe I was thinking more Rogue, right?
Well, I mean, Rogue will ruin everything.
Can prep it out, and they can probably take advantage of certainly any of the Alliance things.
Yeah. So
I'm calculating that because I am embarrassed and I teach math, I would say, so 20% chance, if you want to get, say, specifically Vol'jin, you have a 20% chance to get him on your first random.
Yeah.
And then out of the 80% that you didn't get it, you have a 25% chance to get him, and that actually works out to exactly 40%.
Oh, so it is 40. Okay. All right.
But I was wrong in my original reason. So you were right in the reason.
Yeah. You were right, but for the wrong reasons, which is really what's important. So yeah. So if that's live now, obviously that's gonna take you a little while to, if you're not been Hearthstone, it's gonna take you a couple weeks probably to get there. But the first one, I believe, is for the second phase, I think, is the regular copies of the Champions of Azeroth cards, and then the third stage is golden versions, and then the fourth one is a portrait. So you don't have to go that deep into it just to get the cards if you don't want them to be shiny. But I mean, who doesn't want a shiny Velen? I mean, come on. So we also got Hearthstone merch added to the gear shop for the first time, I think, since BlizzCon. We got a number of new shirts, in particular, with this kind of pizza, they call it pizza, Murloc pizza design. So it's got the front of it has like the Hearthstone 10 logo, and then the back has this like pizza-esque design with a Murloc holding a card and like a checkerboard pattern and stuff like that. You can get it on a shirt, on a t-shirt, you can get it on a sweatshirt. There's one if you just want like the card back and then the Hearthstone 10 on the back, you can do that. If you're thinking, well, I want to have a shirt with a Hearthstone card back on it, but I also want to show my midriff, then you can do that too. There's a women's cropped shirt. It's in a couple different colors. There's also a long sleeve t-shirt with the card back and the 10 on the back. And also a lot of the other stuff from BlizzCon is on sale right now. I mean, I don't know if it will be by the time you're listening to this, if you're not watching the stream, but like you can get so a bunch of the stuff from BlizzCon, like the BlizzCon posters are half off. There's like an ultimate fan gift set with like a button down shirt and a t-shirt and a scarf and a lanyard and a mouse pad and a pint glass and like six or seven card back pins for like $210, but it was originally $300. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that we'll have a link in the show notes. You can go check that out. But there's some of the stuff that is even there from last year is still good. But I just wish that they had the pizza design on the front of the shirt. It's like, it's a little, that's not my style with having the big gaudy design in the back. I want that in the front, but each their own. In actual game news that's live right now, we did get a small patch right after we recorded last week that fixed a number of the bugs that were there at launch, including that PvE opponents didn't know how to use starships, that where cards that discovered once but gave you multiple cards under certain conditions, like Master's Call, reduce the cost of alien counters multiple times. Alien counters is the spell that costs 5 that summons 2/2/5 taunts, and it gets discounted for each time you discovered. So before this bug was fixed, if you played Master's Call, it would discount it to 2. Now it's going to discount it just the once. And a couple of other changes that are less impactful. So nothing too significant, but just be aware of it.
Speaking of bug fixes, we had been wondering when they said they fixed how Gravity Lapse works with Astral Automaton. We were like, how does it work with Astral Automaton? I found out because I ran into a player named Malpheus, who was playing Automaton Priest, and it works. It basically doubles the buff. Because what happens, let's say that you have a Astral Automaton that's been buffed +2/+2 from you summoning other Astral Automatons. And then you play, so it's a 3/4. You play Gravity Lapse on it. First, it collapses to a 3/3 because it had 3 attack.
Oh, but it
now
changes
that's its
the base
white
stats.
So its base stats are 3/3. Now it gets an extra +2/+2, so it's actually a 5/5. That could get much bigger if it had more than just +2/+2, because it's basically doubling, except for then the health goes down by 1. It's doubling the attack, and then that is the new
stats
health, for the whole thing. Or if it had taken some damage, it'll go down a bit. Like they had a 5/3 on board. And then it got damaged, or it went up to, I want to say a 6/6, because it had +3/+3, but then it had been damaged. It had also been buffed by something else. That's why it had an extra attack. I had to watch over the replay to be like, am I getting this correct how it works? But basically, if you want to play Automaton Priest, or you see an Automaton Priest, Gravity Lapse is a powerful tool for that. I don't know that it's better than some of the other Priest decks we have running around right now, but it is cool if you want to play that. So,
but just heal your robots before you Gravity Lapse. That's your PSA.
And reminder, they're going to fix this as soon as they can, but I believe it's still true. If you get a disconnect, don't quit with escape or through the menu like a normal person. Go Alt F4 or Command Q, depending on your operating system, and then come back in, because otherwise it'll be a concede. So they're going to fix that very soon, but probably in the next client patch they will fix that, most likely. But if that hasn't happened when you're listening to this, keep that in mind so you don't get unintentional concedes.
Yeah. And where you really would not want to concede is in a tournament.
It's the grand tournament.
So we had an actual tournament that is a little tricky to get the coverage of. You can't sort of watch it in the normal fashion because it's one of the Chinese qualifiers. So there are 16 qualified players fighting to win 4 spots to Worlds. And we are currently down to a top 8 as we're recording this. And that top 8 will play out the rest of the event Saturday, November 16th. Players we have for the top 8, the ones I can read are Sif, Xiaoti, ML Yanming, Yuansu, and Proyun. And then I'm just gonna trust what we've got here.
So
one of them
I went on Google Translate.
Yeah, one of them Google translates to "little new god." Another one Yokomichi Yonosuke, which sounds more Japanese than Chinese, but
It seemed to think it was Japanese. I don't know if that was incorrect or not.
So
I don't think they're letting Japanese players play on the China server, so I would
so
imagine
probably
not.
it was something else.
I would
It couldn't
assume it's
recognize.
like because some of the characters are the same. I assume it's something different, but and then another one seems to Google Translate to breaking news, which is kind of fun. Yeah, basically the players that I'm familiar with are Sif, Xiaoti, and Yanming. Of those who remain.
And LVGE, right? Did an LVGE qualify?
Didn't make it to the top 8, but yes, was in that 16.
Oh, okay.
So those are the folks we're familiar with, and the others, I guess if they do well enough, maybe we will get anglified versions of their games as well. But
Lorinda probably knows. Lorinda probably knows all these players, and knows how to translate those names. But yeah,
anglicized names are for closers.
Yeah.
So in terms of overall lineups, there are no warlocks. There was one egg hunter, didn't make it to top 8. One pirate DH, didn't make it to top 8. One Odin warrior, also didn't make it to top 8. One anchorite priest, and actually the only priest. So that's interesting. Did make it through to top 8. And that's like this sort of weird new approach to Overheal where you just make big stuff and then sometimes you crazed alchemist and flip it for big damage. And I think aggressive generally. 7 Death Knights, all of which are rainbow. Some have starships, some do not. I'm not positive, but I think all of those starship ones are not running the 2 cost because it can actually situationally be difficult to trigger the spell burst. So instead, to activate the death rattle, they go for like a turn 9 situation of running 1 yelling yodeler, so they can pay 5 mana to get the starship and then just yelling yodeler. It's as good as if you had the other one in there and activate the spell burst, right? So they can get those death rattles immediately. Is what it is.
It looks like Yanming even had a yelling yodeler in ETC as well as one in the deck, just to make sure.
Common thing.
There's access to that.
So only 3 of them made it through to the top 8. I don't know which of those were necessarily starships or not, but 3 rainbow DKs. 7 druids, all Aulonius. My nightmare. It was 44% of the field. 5 of them made it to top 8. So, tells you something. There were 8 shamans, 7 nostalgia, and 1 spell damage. The spell damage got through, as well as 4 of the nostalgia shamans. 9 paladins, all Pipsy. 4 of them made it through. And 14 mages, 13 of which were orb big spell mage. 1 elemental mage made it through, and 6 of the orb decks did. And then 13 rogues. 1 Shafar, which I'm a fan of, but it didn't make it through. And then 12 cycle giant rogues, 7 of which made it through. So kind of an indication of what we were expressing at the top of the show. These top decks, right? The ones where a bunch of them made it through. Aulonius Druid, Nostalgia Shaman, Pipsy Paladin, Big Spell Mage, Cycle Rogue, like these aren't new things.
These are last set stacks, effectively.
Right.
They're with some updates, to be fair, but still, I mean, Big Spell Mage we thought wasn't really going to make it through the expansion after the nerfs, and so it did. And now, and even like Cycle Rogue, like Giant Rogue, is something that was not on my bingo card for what was going to get resurrected from the dead. But I mean, that's an even older deck. And that's back. And
perhaps better than ever, right? It's not reliant on Gatekeeper now.
Right.
Gatekeeper's not even in the deck. And so it's I think more consistent because the way they figured out to build it is you essentially have 4 copies of Robocaller because you've got the 2 and then the 2 Tutor Mechs. And then you just use that and step it to draw a bunch of cards and guarantee get your triggers of everything must go.
Yeah, everything must go is the draw 3 cards, just combo destroy a random minion, and if you
No, that's dubious purchase.
That's dubious purchase, sorry.
Everything must go is
that's the one that summons the 2/4 drops. Yeah. But those both cost 8, right? So but the base cost.
The base cost of everything must go is 8, and then you also have a concert promo Drake that's there just to be drawn and cycled. Dubious purchase costs 4.
Oh, okay.
You don't usually play it for 4, right?
Right.
There is an 8 cost that reduces 4 cards played from other classes that destroys 2 minions. That might have been what you were thinking.
Oh, maybe that's what.
But that's not in the deck because you don't play things from other classes.
That's just preemptive trauma from Urkel Rogue, I guess.
Yeah, but I still kind of feel like Elemental Mage is like, well, I think it's new enough, right? It's got enough new cards that I sort of appreciate it as like a newish deck. Certainly the fact of it being a serious contender is new, right? It's not just this, budget ladder terror. It's legit and it's going places. And so I consider that to at least be new. Spell Damage Shaman is new. But people didn't feel strongly enough about those for there to be more than 1 each of them.
Or same with Anchorite Priest, same with Egg Hunter. Those are newer decks. The Odin Warrior probably misread and thought there would be a lot of Elemental Mages. And it turned out there was not.
It's also worth keeping in mind, right, that this tournament started on November 11th, which was 6 days after the set released. And really 5 days after the set released, because if you think about like the set would have, they're 12 hours ahead of Eastern time. So I think 15 hours ahead of Pacific time. So it would have released like early Wednesday morning in China, right? So they really had 4 days to prep for a major tournament when the meta hadn't really settled yet. So when that happens, especially for a major tournament like that, it is not surprising to see older refined decks that these players would have a lot of experience on, as opposed to some things that had been developing over the course of the week that were untested, especially, the ones that kind of developed a little bit further in. So it's very easy to look at this tournament meta and say, oh, there are no new decks in this meta, but it's a different scenario. And I'm not saying that this meta is like showcasing all of the new cards that the standard the ladder meta, that's showcasing all of the new cards that Great Dark Beyond has to offer. You can go read the Vicious Syndicate report and see, make your own conclusion about that. But I'm saying that I wouldn't look at this tournament meta specifically if that's the argument you're trying to make, because there are very different motivations in what someone is going to bring to a tournament to qualify for the World Championships 4 days after the set releases, as opposed to what you're just going to go and jam on ladder.
Yeah,
that actually is a good argument for, and I think, in this case, they had to get it in enough time to have people before Worlds, but it's a good argument to not have the tournament so close to a release. I know that the point is to hype up the new set, but if it's so close, they won't be hyping up the new set. Unless it was like a rotation, right? They'll be hyping up some of the older cards because you don't want to take that kind of risk usually. Like, I'm quite impressed with the Anchorite Priest person for whom it is at least so far working out, because that was like not a tested deck at all at that point.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed that whenever balance hits, things develop such that there are many more new things going into the World Championship.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a goal of theirs.
Yeah, and I think that also might just be like a nod to logistics too. I mean, the Hearthstone World Championships is in a couple of weeks. They probably needed a full ladder a full ladder season to see who was going to just be invited to this qualifier, and then they need to have time for like travel. I guess there's not travel because it's all from home, but like they have to have time for all the logistics to get them enrolled and get them ready, and then have time to prep for that tournament, right? So there may just not have been like, this is probably making the best of a bad situation, given the fact that that China really only came back online at the very end of September.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. If you want to look at these specific deck lists and lineups, we've got the link to the HS Guru page for the event, and there's also a detailed Google sheet that is sort of the I think this comes from Ruby Rose, but it's got like the bracket and descriptions and stuff. This actually looks like a document that's like for staff working the event, which I'm kind of surprised they have access to. But at any rate, it's available for viewing. And yeah, that's the qualifiers. If you want to watch it, I would say check out Banterface's VODs. He did some viewing. The casting is not in English, so
yeah. You're probably gonna have to watch a streamer who has access to the stream to watch it. You're certainly not going to watch it with English commentary anywhere. And then but also it's not easy to find if you're not on like the Chinese streaming services. So you're probably just going to want to try to find a streamer who's restreaming it and putting their own commentary over it.
Yep. Cool. Well, that brings us to, of course, another prestigious event, which is the Concede Listener Series.
Equally prestigious and equally rigorous. Yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah, this one. What's this one called? Cow Concede?
Cash Cow Concede.
Cash Cow Concede. Yeah. We have our top four, right? Semifinalists, Scoob D and Logar. Second place was Glacier. And first place goes to Rapid. Got an HS Guru link for the lineups over there. Just some quick hits in terms of the finals. Game one, Glacier was on Elemental Mage, while Rapid was on, I guess, what we're calling Turtle Druid, the armor deck that Wicked was playing last week. Glacier had really explosive start, delaying the ramp for Rapid, who on turn 6 had to take a risk and tried to set up a full heal ANR, but it was burned down by a turn 6 Sarun plus burn damage. So
it was turn 6 Sarun, turn 7 burn damage. Yes.
When you top deck the Surger, sometimes they just die. Game 2, Glacier was on Spell Damage Shaman against, again, that Druid from Rapid. And Rapid got the Anchorites down for Taunt very quickly, and Glacier just wasn't able to punch through or get quite enough damage over the top. Game went long, which is not really what Spell Damage Shaman wants to see. I think basically, unless you can just get under them enough to the point that you can ignore the starship piece that gives armor, then you're in trouble. That's definitely a matchup I've had to play myself a bit. And then game 3, Glacier again on that Shaman, Rapid on Pipsy Paladin, the sort of meta favorite, I guess. Glacier got down an early cookie and had full board of buffed minions with Ticking Pylon Ziliax on 4, but Prismatic Beam and a full hand of Holy Spells kept Glacier at bay. And then when Rapid was down to 8, Lumia came down, followed by Amethyst and Sankazel, and that just kind of gets out of hand. Lumia is just a real door closer if you don't have a clean answer, because you are not allowed to go face with more than one thing. So if you're going wide, you're sort of out of luck. And then unless you have a like not hitting it way of dealing with Lumia, you're giving them at least 9 life?
9. I think Glacier managed to only hit into it once, but that still brought Rapid from 8 to 17.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot on a 6-drop.
That still makes the big noise. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then you put down an Amethyst and like buff it with a Sankazel so you can't even like trade through it nicely. And it's just like, no. Yeah.
So if anyone wants to watch the casted finals, they are on World 8's channel, and we have a link to that VOD also in the show notes. But that is going to do it for tournaments. Our Dexplanations was sort of an abridged version in Life and Ladder. So yeah, that'll do it. We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at Concede.com, where you can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com, and write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky at CoinConcede. And if you'd like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. I'm like seriously considering just switching over to Blue Sky.
You should.
Off Twitter.
You should. It's
like I'm just not opening that app again.
I've legitimately I've really only opened Twitter this week when I was just looking for news links for this show, because Ben Hearthstone is still not moved over to Blue Sky yet. And when Blue Sky was down for about an hour or two this afternoon to see if it was down. So it's like it's like going full circle from like the days when you would go onto like the other, like when Twitter was having fail whales, and you would go onto like, I don't even remember what the other sites were that were like Twitter likes that you basically only kept accounts on to have some place to go when Twitter was down. And now Twitter is that site for Blue Sky for me. It's good. I would recommend it. It is basically like you know how like Diablo 2 Remastered is not exactly like how Diablo 2 was, but it's how you remember Diablo 2 being.
Sure.
Like,
yeah,
that's kind of how Blue Sky is as far as like how you remember old Twitter before all the things.
I'm sure I would get used to it very quickly. It's just, there's that feeling initially of like, oh God, we're starting from scratch again.
You're not starting from scratch. I already put you on the Hearthstone Creators starter pack that I built.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
You probably have a whole bunch of follow requests that you haven't even looked at yet.
All right. Yeah, I may just do that then, because it's just a bad habit at this point, opening Twitter. Yeah. And of course you get served all kinds of other junk now, right? That goes to your notifications. And yeah, I might even additionally want to do the whole like purge all my tweets and stuff.
Well,
because
that's the 15th is when they start training all their AI on stuff, right?
Like tomorrow?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
yeah,
and interesting project.
Like I went so far as to like swap the icons on my home screen. Like I didn't take Twitter off my phone, but I swapped where it was so that like, because like my thumb was just like going there by muscle memory. And let me tell you, especially like last week, I just didn't want to see any politics news, and I didn't, because there's no algorithm serving you anything. You're just getting stuff from the people you want to follow or like feeds that you're subscribing to. And it is absolutely lovely.
That sounds great.
And you can look into like things popular with people who you follow. So if you're like, who do I even follow for Hearthstone? We could put together a list. If you go to the @CoinConcede, you can find us. You can look at who we're following. Yeah. We will put a link to that in the show notes as well. Or if you find Ridiculous Hat and you look at who he's following, like that's...
Oh, well, if Hat's over there, that's all I need.
Hat's over there.
Hat's been posting again. Yeah. And it's been having a moment. It's already grown. It grew like 1 million users over like 5 days, and then grew another 1 million users over the past day.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I know, right? But like I've been getting I got added to another starter pack, but I've been getting follows pretty consistently throughout the last couple of days. It's been it's a good time to do it.
Listeners, this was your insight into some mild behind the scenes chat, but Concede to, I guess, alternative options, and to you, Wicked, for pointing all this out to me, because I will absolutely make that switch now. In all seriousness, though, it's been a tough week. Not for any of that stuff, actually. I went to visit my grandma because she turned 95 on Sunday.
Wow.
And while I really enjoy spending time with her, and she somehow manages to still like cook all the things and not let me help out with dishes and other stuff.
Oh my gosh.
It is also tough because I'm bringing Leah, and so I'm just like, there is no off until Leah is asleep. So yeah, and she has entered like peak clingy like attachment phase. Like I always hold her a lot, but and some of it might have been having to do with she got a bunch of vaccines before we left, but and maybe her molars are coming in. But yeah, it's just been like I cannot leave the room or she starts to cry. You know, until she gets distracted by someone else, if someone else is there. But like, yeah, it's really tough when it's just like, I can't do anything because like I'm trying to make some pancakes for her to eat, and it's just like I'm literally one room over. It's just like, I can't see you. I'm upset. You're not holding me. I'm upset. I'm just, so yeah, tough week. But Concede to my grandma, who's 95 and still doing incredibly well. I hope that she gets to see the other side of the next 4 years, because the bummer era to go out on. So
wow. I'm in a Concede to my oldest daughter, who finally passed her driving test this week. So that was a long time coming. And that's not, by the way, for someone who is autistic, that is not a trivial thing, by the way. So it took me more tries than it took her to get my driver's license. So and then I was expecting to just drive myself to the game store on Sunday. After this, just the day after her driving test. She's like, no, look, and like she was waiting. She's like, no, I want to go. Like, okay, so you're not just going because that's the only way you get driving practice. You actually want to go to the game store, even though you're not actually playing anything while you're there. Yeah, okay. I guess that's because she gets to info dump everything about Final Fantasy 14 to a captive audience for the 20-minute drive to and from the game store. But yeah, no, so it was nice that she still wanted to go and spend time, even though she doesn't actually like do any game story things at the game store. But that was cool. But I was really happy that she passed the road test. It was especially the way that she failed it the first time was basically because the person who was giving the test was being not giving clear instructions, and then failed her because she didn't follow the instructions that were not clear. So it was good to see her be able to bounce back from that and do the thing. So yeah.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, I will Concede first to Feel Better Hat, and hopefully can at least get a little bit of a break from managing everything in order to recover. Also Concede to all the classroom teachers out there. My husband's stepbrother, who I met while we were visiting my mother-in-law, is a classroom teacher in a not especially well-off public school, and for social studies. And that just every part of that is so difficult, especially right now. So we were trading stories, and I just have so much respect for classroom teachers and the incredible amount of work that we ask them to do and importance that they have for students. And so, yeah, hats off to all of you classroom teachers at all grade levels.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm and construct more pylons. And if you see us on ladder, Concede.
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 All life must end. I yield for now. I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend. You win this